to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And it is a great day to be alive on Westwood One Sports. A fabulous football Friday. Yes, because football is now firmly back. Okay, the preseason variety. I get it. We're not supposed to make too much out of it, but we will. First 6 games of the first full week of the NFL preseason went down last night. And of course, what would preseason football be without massive overreactions to what we saw? We'll have some today here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports, ready to help you launch off into a full weekend of preseason football. And yes, there are still stretch run baseball games, very important ones being played. In particular, this weekend in L.A. between the Brewers and the Dodgers, and out in the cornfield in Iowa last night between the Phillies and the Twins. We'll get to all of it, and you can stay with us not just for the next 3 hours, but for your entire fabulous football Friday and all weekend and every single day inside the Westwood One Sports app. Also live inside your Odyssey app. It's free. Download it, wouldn't you? AUDACY. And of course, we are with you live across North America on Sirius XM channel 375. We will react to a lot of what's been going on in the football world, not just preseason football, but arguments about numbers and jerseys, as that mess doesn't seem to be getting cleared up anytime soon. A little twist in the new ownership of the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll talk to Doug McCain of D-Mac and Writer Afternoons on 97.1 The Fan in Los Angeles. He'll join us in the final hour of the show. With 6 games being played last night, that means there are still 10 more preseason games to be played across the NFL this weekend. There are plenty of interesting roster battles. Yeah, a lot of them are down the line. Roster spots 50, 51, 52, 53 on all 32 of those rosters. But there are more interesting battles than that, including in Cleveland, where they're still trying to figure out the quarterback position. Good friend Ken Carman from Mornings on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland will join us in the second hour of the show. And we got a little early glimpse of what Robert Saleh might do with the Tennessee Titans as he took his new team all the way out to the Bay to face his old team, the San Francisco 49ers, last night in their preseason opener. John Burton from News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville will join us here in the first hour. In fact, in just about 20 minutes. So we've got a full show for you, a lot to talk about, especially leaning in on those 6 preseason games last night. Let's dive right into the 5 biggest stories of the day. We call it the High Five.
5.
Aller sings it over the middle, has Weegen's going to turn on the speed. Hayden Weegen is on his way. Will he get caught? Turns it on extra. 10-5 down to the 2-yard line.
Bob Pompiani on KDKA, CBS Pittsburgh. Drew Aller finding Hayden Weegen, Steelers' 4th-round pick out of Iowa, in stride for a big 74-yard catch and run. And Aller had himself an impressive night in his NFL preseason debut. 10 of 13, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus 1 on the ground as well. And the immediate overreaction is happening already. I saw somebody post last night. Got to ask yourself, when's Aller going to take over the starting quarterback role in Pittsburgh? All right, pump the brakes. Look, particularly in Pittsburgh, where a few years ago, Kenny Pickett, of all people, had a wonderful preseason, and that entire fan base has been burned now by overreacting to preseason results. There will be a pumping of the brakes. But let's encourage it now across the entire football watching landscape. Because while Aller looked good, really good, hell, I'm a Penn State fan and a Steelers fan, so you would think I would be one of the ones getting out over my skis about this Drew Aller debut last night. It was still the preseason. Yes, Aller looked really good, but so did Will Howard. So did Mason Rudolph, for that matter. The three Steelers backups combined to go 27 of 33 for 313 yards. The Steelers, for reference, have that many passing yards in just one regular season game in the past 5 years. That's it. Through the remnants of a broken down Ben Roethlisberger's final season, through Kenny Pickett, through Mitch Trubisky, through Russell Wilson, through Justin Fields, through Matt Canada and Arthur Smith as offensive coordinators, they never really had a true offensive identity other than fear. Mike Tomlin was afraid to let his offensive coordinators use the middle of the field because he didn't really fully trust what he had at quarterback. All of those names I just listed. Even the future Hall of Famer Roethlisberger in his final year was a shell of his former self. So Tomlin was afraid to use the middle of the field. He was afraid to turn the ball over. And that wasn't a part of the DNA that we saw from the Steelers offense last night. I know. I'm saying the same thing. It's preseason. And it's backups against backups in many cases. But rather than the hyper-focus on Aller and what he did specifically, I think what the real focus should be on Mike McCarthy. Giving the Steelers an offense that already in one preseason game looks more efficient and capable than anything the Steelers had in Mike Tomlin's final half-decade as Steelers head coach. We'll get into this and what it may mean because we will talk a good bit of AFC North here this morning a little bit later in the show. Good job, Drew Aller. Good job, Mike McCarthy. Maybe the Steelers actually have an offense. Next.
4.
Schwarber with a shot out to the corn in right. Keisha back and it's gone! What a way to open the ball game! A corn-fueled Schwarbomb!
Matt Vasgersian on Netflix. I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing with him because he couldn't have meant that in a very serious tone. A corn-fueled Schwarbomb. Kyle Schwarber led off the Field of Dreams game last night in Dyersville, Iowa, with a home run. He hit a second one later. And the Phillies went on to win the Field of Dreams game. First time it's been played in 3 years. 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. And I think that's perfect. Look, there's not much more nostalgic for a baseball fan than Hall of Famers walking out of a cornfield into right field and all the way across the infield to the third baseline. You really can't get enough of that moment if you're a true baseball fan. But we don't need to do this every year. Sounds like they've got plans in the works already for next year's matchup. Red Sox may have leaked that they're going to be a part of it. We don't need to do this every year. Every 2 or 3 years is fine. I know MLB spent a ton of money rehabbing the site and upgrading the little ballpark there on the edge of the cornfield. And it is, visually, it's amazing. If you are a baseball fan of my age, and I would hope younger generations have come around to finding Field of Dreams as well, but particularly if you are a baseball fan of my age, that movie holds a lot of emotion. Feels, kids. We get in our feels when we see the Hall of Famers walk out of the cornfield. When we imagine, hey, want to have a catch with Dad? By the way, do you want to play catch? But I've heard enough of that argument. It's a great atmosphere, and it's fun. But The bigger story of baseball last night may have been that you had the Brewers storm back in the ninth to beat the Dodgers at Chavez Ravine in that battle for one of the two byes in the NL playoff race. Maybe finding some of their stride, hitting with runners in scoring position again, as they did in the ninth inning last night. Maybe that's just one game in LA. But that's the one that mattered more, as I smack the mic, because I'm moving my hands too much while I talk this morning. That's the game that mattered more than old guys walking out of a cornfield in Iowa. All due respect to old guys walking out of a cornfield in Iowa. I love it. I just wonder if we could get this Field of Dreams game maybe a little earlier in the summer. If we could not do it every year. We don't need it every year. It's a fun moment, but let's not overdo it, okay? Next.
3.
Back to Jeremiah Love, and he hops a defender. Oh, man, has he been impressive here in the first half. Jeremiah Love up to 58 yards here in this opening half for Arizona.
And that's what he finished with. Jason Horowitz on the call on KVVU-TV in Las Vegas. Jeremiah Love had 11 carries for Arizona last night, 58 yards, 3 catches for 14 yards as well. I hate to beat the horse because it's dead and I've already been beating it all summer long. Please don't isolate that clip. Thank you very much. Jeremiah Love is going to be really good. Really, really good. And I think we saw just a few little glimpses of it last night. The ability to break through arm tackles. The ability, once he gets to the second level, to shift into another gear. Jeremiah Love is going to give us some incredible moments this year. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, not so much. But if you wanted, it's not sneaky, I don't think. I'd have to look at the numbers again, and I should have had this looked up before we started the show. But if you were looking for a dark horse offensive rookie of the year candidate, Jeremiah Love wouldn't be a bad look. Heck, Carson Beck might not be a bad look if we want to talk about overreactions to preseason games. I know he didn't play last night, but between Beck and Love and what they did in their first preseason action scattered over the last 2 Thursdays, Arizona's not going to win more than maybe 5 games. Maybe they really put things together and win 6 this year. They're not going to be in a wild card conversation when we get to December. Heck, probably not even November for that matter. The Cardinals are not going to be good this year. But we've talked about this multiple times this summer. With just capable quarterback play, and Beck looked more than capable in the Hall of Fame game last Thursday. With just capable quarterback play, with the skill position players that they have scattered around the offense, and Jeremiah Love running anything like he did at times last night, the Cardinals could be scary in a year or two once they get an offensive line in place. I know it's early, and I'm not telling you to go bet the Cardinals to compete in the NFC West or to go to the playoffs. Again, today, as much as we're going to overreact, we're also going to pump the brakes on some of those overreactions to the first half dozen preseason games in the first full week of the preseason. But I think if you're a Cardinals fan, you got to feel pretty good about Love, about Beck, and where things may be going over the next couple of years. I said if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan. I know there are some of you out there. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. It's You Better You Bet. Starting the show by counting down the 5 biggest stories of the day. The high 5, number 2.
2.
But my problem was when Joe Burrow's name got brought up, because both are Heisman winners. And at that point, I'm just going to tell you what LSU fans would tell you. Respect Jaden Daniels. Love what he did for us. You're not Joe Burrow. Your impact on this university was not Joe Burrow. And if that guy is being treated differently than you, it's because he has a different shelf on the legacy of LSU, maybe than you, or, hey, for that matter, anyone else does.
Anyone.
Josh Pate on ESPN yesterday discussing the Jaden Daniels number 5 saga. I mean, how many different directions can we go in this thing and find fault with people, because there's a lot. Obviously, DJ Pickett. Really, you decided where you were going to go to college and where you were going to go play football. I understand you're a 5-star recruit. You've probably had everybody tell you for the entirety of your existence on earth how great you are. But you based it on what jersey number you were going to get to wear? Come on. What are we doing? Unless grandma's last words on the deathbed were, number 5. What are we doing? I get it. You've worn number 5 since you were a little kid. I've seen little kids handle this better than DJ Pickett has handled it. Wear whatever number you're given. Go out and make a name for yourself with whatever number they hand you. Jaden Daniels, for that matter. The moment you and your people wanted to drag Joe Burrow, your representatives wanted to drag Joe Burrow's name into this conversation, you had to know it was going to go sideways. Joe Burrow had one of the best seasons of all time in 2019. That 2019 National Championship LSU squad is one of the best college football teams, if not the best college football team of all time. And you want to talk about going 10-3 and playing in a ReliaQuest Bowl as comparing to Joe Burrow? You don't need to take your ball, or in this case, your number 5 and your name, image, and likeness and go home. Let this DJ Pickett kid go out there and wear number 5 and see if he holds any kind of a candle to what you did when you won a Heisman at LSU. Those are just 2 of the people in this entire ridiculous scenario acting like adult-sized children. Not the least of which is Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly before him. And I'm sure LSU fans, I've got some in my family, are handling this all very, very well. He said with zero sarcasm dripping from his voice. We'll get into this in a little bit more detail later in the show, but we're arguing over a jersey number, people. You're not 5 years old. You're just acting like it. Finally, number 1.
1.
Goes a quick throw. Whoa! And it's caught! The Mandalorian with his first Raider touchdown, and it goes to Jack Bech.
Jason Horowitz again on KVVU in Las Vegas. Fernando Mendoza's first NFL touchdown pass, at least to the preseason variety, to Jack Bech. Finished 10-16 for 97 yards with that touchdown. Looked a little shaky at times. He's still adjusting to getting under center. There's going to be a lot of adjustments for Fernando Mendoza. Not the least of which is playing behind that offensive line in Vegas. It's not good. Which is exactly why you don't overreact to anything Mendoza may do too well during the preseason. You let him get out there. You let him get his reps. And then you let him stand there and hold a clipboard and watch Kirk Cousins go out there and make mistakes. And you let Mendoza learn from that. I know, Raiders fans, I know you're anxious to see Fernando Mendoza in there. We all want to see if this guy can actually live up to the first overall billing. I don't know if he can, but we all want to see it at some point. I just think what's best for the Raiders at this point, where they are on the timeline, is not to throw Mendoza in there. Another conversation I know we've had a lot this spring and summer since Mendoza was drafted, since the Raiders signed Kirk Cousins. But I still fall down on the same side of the argument I have since the very beginning. Let Mendoza sit. Let Mendoza watch. And then, when Kirk Cousins is completely broken down, you put Mendoza in there. There's no rush. You're not going anywhere this year. So let Mendoza sit and watch and learn. Make the most of the preseason reps by all means, Fernando. But again, let's not overreact too much to anything we see in the preseason. Although we'll do that a little bit later here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today, presented by BetMGM. Some rash overreactions to those 6 preseason games, and on each of those overreactions, we'll try to pump the brakes just a little bit and find some perspective in the results, because again, it is the preseason. A look ahead to the rest of the first weekend of preseason action around the NFL. Doug McCain will join us from LA. We've gone 20 minutes this morning and haven't mentioned once Aaron Donald's possible comeback to the Rams. We'll talk to D-Mac about that in the final hour. We'll talk to Ken Carman from Cleveland about what he's expecting from Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, and the Browns quarterback discussion in the second hour. But coming up next, Titans went out to the Bay Area and beat the Niners last night. I don't know if that really means much, the result, but as one of the darlings, one of the popular sleeper picks going into the 2026 season, I do want to get a Nashville perspective on what Robert Saleh is doing with the Titans, Cam Ward, Carnell Tate, and all of it. We'll talk Titans with John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Radio in Nashville next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
You want to talk misery business? We'll get into it with Ken Carman. Sorry, that was mean. I like Ken. Ken's a really good friend. We're going to talk to him in about an hour or so about the Browns heading to Chicago for their preseason opener and how things are looking with their quarterback battle, air quotes with my fingers. That coming up a little bit later here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet. This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting your business vehicles 24/7. See if you can save at progressivecommercial.com. Coming up in about 20 minutes. I mean, talk about an infiltration of the enemy or your little brother moving into your bedroom when you go off to college. This is unacceptable. This aggression will not stand, man. Something going on in Southern California that we need to talk about coming up before 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. But with the first 6 preseason games of this first full weekend of NFL preseason action out of the way, including a late night till out in the Bay Area, late night Eastern time anyway, between the Titans and the Niners. And the Titans being one of the preseason darlings for a lot of people. One of those dark horses, one of those teams that a lot of people expect to take the next step. I thought, who better to talk to from Nashville with everything going on around the Titans than the man who's probably in the best shape of anybody I know in Nashville and covers the Titans and everything going on in Tennessee for News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville. My good friend John Burton joins us here on Westwood One Sports. Morning, JB. How are you?
Chris, I'm great. First of all, thank you for the compliment. Yeah, I try to hit the gym and stay in a little bit of shape. Second of all, you are still that Pittsburgh guy, aren't you? Just ripping on the Browns every chance you get. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
I mean, come on. It's an easy target, John. It's a real easy target.
I lived in Pittsburgh for over a decade, and I went to many a Steelers-Browns game and just watching the black and gold pummel the brown and orange, and all you Pittsburgh fans just taking delight to that. So, I guess it's in your blood, right?
It is. It's an inextricable strand in the DNA. It can't be ripped out. Let's talk about your Titans, though. They go out, they get a win, and that's secondary, really, the final score to the results in a preseason game. But a 19-13 win out in San Francisco. Let's start with the guy who went back to visit his old team, Robert Saleh, the new head coach for the Titans. And he decided it looked like the starting unit got roughly 3 series on offense. Were you surprised at all to see how much of a workload they got right out of the gate?
Not really, Chris, because Saleh kind of indicated back in the spring that his initial plan, subject to change, of course, his initial plan was to play his starters pretty significantly in the preseason. And it makes sense, right? He's a new head coach coming to a new organization. He's got an all-new coaching staff, a lot of new players, and a lot of things they want to get right before the opener September 13th against the New York Jets. So, yeah, the starting offense was out there for about 3 series, and I know the starting defense was out there. Jeffrey Simmons, who never plays in the preseason, he was out there doing his thing. So not really a huge surprise to see Robert Saleh have his starters out there for a little bit of an extended period of time. And I think we're probably going to see that in preseason game number 2 as well.
Cam Ward had an interesting night for what it's worth, John. I mean, brilliant 95-yard touchdown drive on the opening possession, but he ends up going just 5 of 12 for 57 yards. I think Saleh said post-game that he looked a little, this is a popular phrase amongst coaches talking about young quarterbacks these days, a little, quote, sped up. Just from your vantage point watching the game, what did you see from Cam Ward in his night of work, especially that first drive that looked pretty good?
Yeah, first drive looked really good. He hit Calvin Ridley for a nice gain on a 3rd and 10, a well-designed play, a screen pass to his tight end, Gunnar Helm, for 16 yards and a first down. I thought overall the offense, ran the ball pretty well. They're starting a rookie as of now at right guard, and Fernando Carmona, who they drafted in the 5th round. He actually looked pretty good. The offensive line did a decent job. Of course, San Francisco didn't play most of their starters on defense, and as you know, it's a pretty good defense. But yeah, I mean, the first drive was pretty good, but as far as the term sped up, I think it's apropos in this situation. He had some guys open in subsequent drives, flat out missed them, or maybe threw the ball too hard, took a really bad intentional grounding penalty when he was under pressure. And I felt like there were times where, he just kind of waited a little bit too long in the pocket. You know as well as I do, that ball's got to come out. You don't have time to, make a sandwich back there. This is the NFL, and they're coming for you. So, listen, there's a lot on Cam this year, right? Number 1 overall pick last year, learning a new offense under Brian Daboll this year, new personnel. He's got a lot on his plate, and he's trying to process everything. But, and how fans are. They're going to look at what Drew Aller did last night for your Steelers. They're going to look at, Joe Burrow, even though he's Joe Burrow, having an efficient night, and, Fernando Mendoza with a nice drive, getting the Raiders into the end zone, and people are going to overreact to it. I'm going to hold off on that, but and see how the rest of the preseason and training camp develops. But by and large, that was not exactly an inspiring, stellar performance by Cam Ward last night. And the book on Cam Ward has always been, look, he's not going to be a 70, 75% completion guy. That's just not his game. But he does have the arm talent. He does have the moxie. He's a tough kid. And the hope is that, Daboll can kind of harness him a little bit and get him to make some big plays and not make as many mistakes.
What's the relationship been like, John, between Daboll and Ward from what you can tell? Because Daboll, I think, is notorious for being a bit of a hard ass. Cam Ward, a young quarterback. Maybe he needs that. Maybe he doesn't. How are those two gelling early on?
But, well, judging by what both guys are saying, it's going well. And, Ward, it seems like a type of guy who wants to be coached hard. The thing about Ward is, we'll see how he develops as an NFL quarterback, right? That's down the road. But as far as doing the little things, getting in early, staying late, watching film, working with his OC, working with his quarterback's coach, it's been exemplary. He has been that guy. He's been a really, really nose to the grindstone type of guy. And, you look at the previous starting quarterback, Will Levis, and I kind of made this analogy, right? Will Levis is a guy that wants to be great. He wants to be a really good quarterback. Cam Ward believes he will be a really good quarterback. So he's got it from a mental standpoint. You're right. Daboll is tough. He's got a temper, and he's very demanding on his quarterbacks. But Ward seems to have taken to that. He likes it. He said nothing but good things about working with Brian Daboll. So the hope is here in Nashville that marriage can work, and we can see better production from the passing game and the offense in general with the Titans.
John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Nashville Sports Radio with us here on Westwood One Sports. You mentioned Will Levis, so let's talk about the backup quarterbacks. Levis, Trubisky, the established veteran being brought in, and Hendon Hooker, who's still looking to finally get off the ground in his NFL career. What's the assessment of what that's going to look like behind Cam Ward? I imagine Trubisky, I don't want to say is a shoe-in to make it, because you want to have an established veteran backup behind a young quarterback like Ward. But what's it look like, the battle for what I would imagine are 2 more quarterback roster spots?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say it. I'll say it. Trubisky will be QB2. He's the backup. That's why he was brought here. And as far as, Will Levis goes, I think he's a guy that they want to hang on to just in case, right? We all know in training camp, someone's going to get hurt, something's going to happen, and that would certainly increase Will Levis's value for a trade. If nobody steps up to trade for him, will Levis still be on the roster? Maybe, but it's pretty clear that the organization from is he the franchise quarterback standpoint has moved on because Cam's here now. But there's a lot that they like about Will, and his attitude's been really good. I mean, that's a tough situation for him. Sat out all last year, opted to get shoulder surgery, now is back, knows he's not going to be the starter, knows right now he's number 3 on the depth chart, so his future here is probably not very promising. So, but it looks like it's going to be obviously Cam as the starter, Trubisky the 2, and they'll look to probably move Will Levis and maybe have Hooker either be on the active roster or the practice squad. And you're right. Hendon Hooker, obviously folks around here very familiar with, had a couple really good seasons at the University of Tennessee. He's loved by the fan base here. I know there are portions of this fan base here in Tennessee that would love to see him be on the roster, be on the team, even if he's not the starter or even the number 2. So it looks like it's going to be Cam, Mitchell, and then probably Hooker in some capacity. And I predict that they're eventually going to move on from Will Levis. They'll either release him or probably, if they can get something for him in a trade, they'd love to do that. But I'm not sure he's going to be on the opening day 53.
Interesting. One of the things that people have talked about in regard to the Titans and why they believe in the Titans taking a step forward this year, John, is obviously Carnell Tate. No catches last night on just 3 targets. Is that just a part of the process at this point, or is there going to be an immediate knee-jerk overreaction this morning in Nashville to Carnell Tate not having a single catch in his first preseason action?
No, that you're gonna chalk that up to the first preseason game, and everything maybe being a little bit out of sorts, out of rhythm. Listen, Carnell Tate has already won over this fan base based on what he's done in training camp, based on what he did back in the spring in OTAs. This kid's the real deal. He's making spectacular catches in practice. He's dominating. He's running great routes, catching the football. You never see him drop the ball. He's really good in the red zone on the fade route, one-on-one with a DB fighting for the ball. He's known as a contested catch guy. He's really, really shined in training camp. I'm sure the fans would have loved to see him, have a tote last night, but that's certainly not cause for any concern, if you will. Carnell Tate, he has proven very quickly, based on how he's performed in practice and in training camp, that there's a reason why the Titans took him 4th overall. It's a bit of a surprise on draft night, but the more you see Carnell Tate perform, the more you realize this is the big play weapon that Cam Ward needs to have a chance for Cam to be a legitimate franchise quarterback in this league.
John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville with us here on Westwood One Sports, talking about the Titans after their preseason debut last night, a win over the Niners in Santa Clara, 19-13. Tony Pollard finished off that first 95-yard drive we were talking about, John, earlier on the first possession. You come back with Pollard and Spears as the 1-2 in the backfield again this year. With a young quarterback, it's always important to have stability in the run game. I'm also a big fan, not just because he's a Penn State guy, but of Nick Singleton, the 5th-round pick, who's in the mix as well. Is there a confidence in them being able to lean on the run game in weeks where maybe Cam Ward does struggle?
Yeah, I think there is. And you mentioned Tony Pollard. I mean, not only a productive player, right? 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, 1 with the Cowboys, 3 straight with the Tennessee Titans. Spears is a guy that they need to get going, right? He's a guy that's been in and out of the lineup with injuries, but you see the ability that he has, not only running the football, smaller guy, not afraid to run between the tackles, but is a great weapon as a pass receiver. Dable's been working with him in the slot, splitting him out wide, letting him see if he can get one-on-one with a safety or a linebacker because that's a mismatch with his quickness and speed. And I'm with you, man. I love Singleton. I love the fact that he's a versatile back. He's got good burst. He's got good power. He can also catch the football. He's a guy that they really, really like as a rookie. So, yeah, you've got a pretty good potential 3-headed monster from the running back position. And, a young quarterback's best friend is a good running game. And, Dable, I know he's known as a quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer and whatnot, but Dable wants to run the football. He wants to be balanced, as most OCs will tell you. But, yeah, you've got 3 pretty good running backs to start with in Pollard and Spears, and now Singleton, who's flashed a little bit in practice, had a couple of good runs last night, as you saw. So, yeah, I mean, if they can get a good running game going and a good short passing game, too, with the tight ends. I mentioned Gunnar Helm, the tight end who caught that little tight end screen and got 16 yards. They have Gunnar Helm, they have Daniel Bellinger, and obviously they went and spent money on Wan'Dale Robinson to be their slot receiver. So, a controlled short passing game and a good running game is only going to benefit Cam Ward.
John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville with us here on Westwood One Sports. Obviously, we're focused on the offense. You got Brian Daboll coming in. You got a second-year quarterback who a lot of people expect to make a leap. You got Carnell Tate. We just got done talking about the running backs. But on the other side of the ball, I mean, it is Robert Saleh who was brought in to helm the ship, John. And yes, you got a win. It's a preseason win for what that's worth. They did give up some chunk plays, though, to some Niners backup quarterbacks. Is there any issue? I know Saleh mentioned a, quote, sense of urgency about getting things right in the secondary last night. Is there any concern about the holes on the depth chart on the defensive side?
Well, the defensive line should be stout, right? You got Jeffrey Simmons, who's an all-pro, and in my opinion, he's a top 5 player in the NFL regardless of position. Doesn't get a lot of national run, obviously, because he plays in a smaller market and a team that hasn't done well. But, they brought in John Franklin Myers as a free agent. They've got some good potential edge rushers, Jermaine Johnson, who they traded for, and Femi Oladejo, who's in his second year, who actually flashed last night, a guy that they're looking to get going. And they also, in the first round, along with Carnell Tate, drafted Keldrick Falk, who's an outside edge rusher out of Auburn. So they feel good about the defensive line. The linebacker crew is solid. They drafted Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. They have a veteran in Cody Barton there as well. It's the secondary, though. That's a bit of a concern. The two safeties are solid, but you have Amani Hooker, who's a veteran and, might be slowing down a little bit. Kevin Winston Jr. is a budding star entering his second year, and they went out and spent a lot of money on their corners, right? They got Alante Taylor and Cordell Flott, who they both brought in as free agents, but the secondary appears to be, for now, the weak part of this defense. But the hope is that front seven in this fast attacking, violent Robert Saleh style defense. And by the way, Saleh says he will call the defensive calls on game day, despite the fact that he's also the head coach. They're hoping that they can dominate to where the secondary doesn't have to work as much. But yeah, there should be a sense of urgency right now because that secondary has to come together, because there are going to be games where, the opposing team, the opposing OC can scheme up that defensive front and protect their quarterback. Now it's up to the secondary to make plays. Potentially across the board, it looks like a good group, but man, they have to come together quickly because, they're going to be facing, every week you're facing either a really good quarterback or an effective quarterback, and you give any quarterback time to throw in this league, you can get picked apart, especially if your secondary is lacking a little bit.
JB, love catching up with you, man. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning. Take care of yourself. Be well. Get in a few extra reps today.
Brother, anytime, man. I'll do a couple extra push-ups for you, Chris. Always good to talk with you, bro.
Thanks, man. John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville with a deep dive on the Titans, who won against the Niners last night in their preseason opener. Not the most impressive night from Cam Ward, but that first drive, I think there have to be some takeaways from when you walk down the field 95 yards and cap it off with 6 points. Coming up top of the hour, we'll have some NFL preseason overreactions. Yes, just 7 games, I guess, counting last week's Hall of Fame game under our belt. But let's overreact just a little bit and maybe tap the brakes where we need to on what we've seen to this point. Ken Carman from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland coming up in about 35 minutes to talk about the Browns quarterback situation as they head to Chicago to take on the Bears tomorrow afternoon. But coming up next, that kids game Imposter? We have an imposter, and the imposter is not just in the building. They own the team now. I'll let you hear exactly what's happening next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
What are we doing? Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. Coming up, the imposter, the interloper is not just in the building. They now own the team. We'll get to it in just a second. Top of the hour, we will overreact to some NFL preseason games. If your home run bet comes up short, though, our friends at BetMGM want to take care of you with that MLB no sweat home run token. You won't have to worry if your bet didn't clear the fences. Just activate your token when you bet on any player to hit a home run. And if that player fails to go yard, you'll get your stake back in bonus bets. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. This is wild to me. It's all coming out now after an appearance on JJ Redick's The Old Man and the Three podcast way back in January of 2021. Bob Iger, who is now the new co-owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, made an admission that I can't think is sitting very well right now with Lakers fans. Listen to this.
I am a Clippers fan, having moved from New York to Los Angeles back in 2000, and being a big NBA fan, I needed a team to root for. And in my youth, the Lakers were a big rival of the Knicks, the team that I grew up rooting for. And so I couldn't root for the Lakers very easily. It just was not in my DNA.
Oh, so why are you buying them? Okay, businessman, smart investment strategy, yada, 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 whatever. Bob Iger, new co-owner of the Lakers, openly admitted that he is a Clippers fan. I can't even come up with a proper analogy for this. Maybe it's like, I don't know, who's somebody from the Mets past? This is like Bobby Valentine coming back and buying the Yankees. I don't know. I can't even come up with a good Yankees Mets analogy. I mean, is this like David Beckham buying Manchester City? I don't know. But this is Lakers fans have a lot going on this offseason. I can't imagine this is making them feel any better about things. Coming up, 6 preseason games last night. Let's have some wild overreactions to some of what we saw. Maybe tap the brakes where applicable. That next, right here on Westwood One Sports.
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Some wild overreactions to what we saw in the first 6 preseason games of the first full week of NFL preseason action. Coming up in just a minute here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. Here on You Better You Bet, live across North America on Sirius XM Channel 375, inside your Westwood One Sports app, inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, and hello to each and every one of you, and thank you for listening on affiliates all over the nation. Doug McCain, out at 97.1 The Fan in L.A., will join us in about an hour and 20 minutes to talk maybe a little bit about Bob Iger being a Clippers fan. We just discussed that. And now co-owning the Lakers, to talk about the Dodgers blowing a lead to the Brewers in the 9th last night, the weird out clause in Shohei Ohtani's contract that we wonder, could that poison pill be dropped if ownership with the Dodgers changes? We know how closely the Dodgers and Lakers are tied. And, of course, we got to talk to D-Mac as well about the Rams as they get ready for their first preseason game and the ongoing question of will he or won't he with Aaron Donald. That's all on the way. In 20 minutes, we'll talk about whatever amounts to a quarterback situation in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, and just the Browns in general as they head to Chicago for an afternoon kick against the Bears in those two teams' preseason opener tomorrow. Ken Carman of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland coming up in 20 minutes. But 6 preseason games. Look, as much as I enjoyed watching the Hall of Fame game last Thursday to sort of get the juices flowing again around football, as much as I like seeing Carson Beck play well because I've become a big Carson Beck fan since last November-ish, as good as it was to see football back last Thursday, it felt good to have a good half dozen games last night. Yeah, we don't have Scott Hansen and Red Zone back yet, but we had lots of football to watch if you wanted to watch football. And between those 6 games last night, I feel like if you want to have some overreactions, what better time of year to have an overreaction than after one game of preseason football when a lot of starters didn't play at all, when a lot of young guys got their first look at an NFL field. So let's have some wild and rash overreactions to what we saw last night. I'll pull Tyler and Kenny in here in just a second. But I've already alluded to this. I mentioned it during the high five to start the show. I've been beating this drum all spring and summer long. I think Jeremiah Love is going to be exceptionally good. Great, even. And yeah, he is the favorite right now, or co-favorite, depending where you look, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And so I will continue to beat that drum for Jeremiah Love being an instant impact player at the NFL level. I think we're going to see it this year, regardless of what Arizona's offensive line looks like, regardless of what they end up doing at quarterback, whether they end up going with Jacoby Brissett or quickly handing the keys to Carson Beck. I think Jeremiah Love instantly steps in and becomes not just RB1 for the Cardinals, but instantly becomes one of the best handful of backs in the NFL. I think we're going to see that kind of impact right out of the gate. And I wish I could be more wild in my overreaction and sit here and tell you, oh, Arizona's going to make the playoffs. They're going to challenge for a wild card. No, I can only get so crazy with the overreactions. 2 preseason games. So I'm not going to do all that. You can look up and down Arizona's schedule. You can look again at the offensive line, some holes on defense, and you can understand it's Mike LaFleur's first season as a rookie head coach in the NFL, and there are going to be lots of struggles for the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're going to have a hard time winning 5 games, but I do think it's going to be a massive year of growth for the Arizona Cardinals, Carson Beck included. And maybe you could roll that into my overreaction here based on what Beck did last Thursday night in Canton against the Carolina Panthers. But Jeremiah Love is going to be instant impact for Arizona. And pencil him in right now, Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's my overreaction. I don't know if you consider that a wild, rash overreaction or not, based on 2 preseason games for the Cardinals and just 1 for Beck and just 1 for Love. But I think you give it 2 years. I know that's like that might as well be asking you to wait forever in the modern day NFL, modern day sports in general. But 2 years max, this team will be back in the playoffs. And Beck, and to a much larger extent, Jeremiah Love, have everything to do with that. Jeremiah Love yards on 11 carries last night in the Cardinals' win over the Raiders. So wild NFL preseason overreactions. Tyler, I'll let you go next. Do you have a wild overreaction to those 6 games we saw last night, or maybe the little bit of preseason football we've gotten to taste so far?
Yeah, I don't want to overreact, but we are about to overreact here. So here's my overreaction. So the result of the game really doesn't matter. Not even the stats matter to me. We talked about this earlier in the game. Cam Ward, I just wanted to see if he looked like sharp, if the offense looked crisp, because there's been a lot of hype. Brian Daboll's there. They have a brand new offensive coordinator, brand new offensive staff. So I expected Cam Ward to at least look somewhat different. He kind of looked the same on the field. Everything was late. The balls were sailing off his arm. He kind of has like the Shedeur Sanders issue where he just like holds the ball on way too long and takes these like hideous looking sacks. He did that like on the first drive of the Titans opener yesterday. So Cam Ward's performance, like I think he's going to be good. I still have faith. He's so talented. I think he's going to do well. But that first start was like did not give me inspiration that he's going to play well this season. And just to piggyback off the Jeremiah Love stuff, like they gave him 11 touches in a random preseason game, and that running back room is loaded. So one takeaway I had is that either like James Conner or Algiers is not going to be on the team coming the regular season, and they're going to be traded as a backup running back or a potential starter to somewhere else, maybe like Detroit or something behind Gibbs. So I think that Cardinals running back room is going to get shaken up a ton, and Cam Ward just like wasn't sharp, which I was actually really surprised about.
Yeah, I think it's a good point about the Cardinals running back room. There's too many guys and not enough footballs if Love is going to be a true bell cow, which I think they need him to be if this offense is going to find itself behind that line in particular. As for Cam Ward and the Titans, I know we just talked to John Burton from Nashville a little earlier in the show. I'm inclined to have the same wonders about Cam Ward as you, Tyler. And I think a lot of it has to do, Cam Ward started to settle in towards the end of last season, the back half of the 2025 season. He looked like he was taking steps forward. I wonder if Cam Ward was playing that well because he was playing maybe free and easy. At that point, there were little to no expectations on the Titans season. Head coach has been fired. We're all just kind of in a holding pattern, trying to get the quarterback to develop. And you bring in a guy like Brian Daboll. I mentioned this earlier as well. Brian Daboll is, in no uncertain terms, a hard ass. He rides his quarterbacks hard. Every single mistake is going to be pulled apart. And I get it. When you're talking about investing the first overall pick in a quarterback, you want to make sure you're getting the absolute most out of them. and that you're truly doing everything you can to develop that quarterback to be the best they can be and fulfill that first overall draft capital. So I understand holding the quarterback, the second-year quarterback, in this case, Cam Ward, to an exacting standard. But I wonder if that pressure is going to buckle Cam Ward at times, if it's going to force a paralysis by analysis at times when he's standing back there in the pocket. I'm not saying you got to treat him with kid gloves, but Daboll is the exact opposite of that. Some guys live and learn and thrive under that. It took Josh Allen a while to get there, though. And maybe the growth for Cam Ward isn't going to be to the moon like we thought it was after watching the second half of last season. Maybe it is more fits and starts. And maybe they shouldn't be the darling that we're all looking at them as to be a possible AFC South contender, maybe a playoff team. Maybe that's one we need to tap the brakes on just a little bit and say, okay, second-year quarterback who looked good in the back half of his rookie year, but he's adjusting to, just an absolute ball breaker in Daboll is his OC, and it could take some time to adjust to that. Kenny, any wild overreactions after 6 NFL preseason games last night?
Yeah, I'll stick in the same game that you talked about, Chris, but I'll talk about the other side. And I think Fernando Mendoza, when he does get the opportunity, I think it's going to be fantastic. And a lot of it has to do with his head coach. I think Vic's going to be a stud play caller. He does, of course, have Brock Bowers, one of the best weapons in the game. And then Ashton Genty, I think, is going to be much better behind that offensive line. But also, even like when Kirk Cousins is going to play, I think he has the opportunity to play well. But what I saw from Mendoza last night, his ability to stuff that he's asked to do, and playing off script, he showed in college he can do that as well. So I think in the right system with the right weapons, Fernando Mendoza, when he gets the opportunity, has the opportunity to give this Raiders team a really high ceiling when he hits his full potential.
Yeah, I think we're at least a year out from that, but I think you make a good point that the guy defense, at least that's one of my primary takeaways. And when he has time and actually sets his feet and makes the throw, I'm not left wondering if Fernando Mendoza can put the ball where he needs to put it. The only question for me is going to be how fast can you rehab the offensive line in Vegas? And if they can do that fairly quickly, then yeah, I'm with you, Kenny. I think Mendoza will be... I still have a hard time seeing him fulfill the potential of a first overall pick, but can he be a top half of the NFL starter? Yeah, certainly. Maybe that's not a wild overreaction, but anything after one preseason game for a third of the league feels like it's probably a little bit of an overreaction. I'll get to one final overreaction that everyone around the NFL, it feels like, is having this morning before 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. And this is one I'm going to warn everybody to just tap the brakes on just a little bit, because even though I was excited about it last night, it's worth tapping the brakes on, or maybe just zooming out and looking at the larger picture in what will be one of the biggest overreactions to the first Thursday night of preseason action last night. 6 different games. We even had a tie between New England and Indy. There are certain things. Look, I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic about preseason football like it's good football. I think, for example, the Steelers and Packers combined for like 20 penalties in their game. Preseason football is sloppy. You get late into the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, you got to look at the depth chart of the roster every single time to figure out who's making what plays. And there are plenty of moments where you go, oh my God, why did I just stay up and watch the end of this game? But I will say this, I will wax poetically and become romantic about just having a full evening of football, even if in some cases these games weren't the most watchable all the way through. 6 down this weekend. That means we've got 10 more NFL preseason games this weekend, including one tomorrow afternoon in Chicago between the Bears, who everybody's in love with this offseason, and the Browns, who nobody feels great about, except maybe there are some people who look at the Browns and can find some bright spots. If anybody can do that, I trust our friend Ken Carman of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland to be able to help us find maybe some bright spots with the Browns, or just dig into this quarterback conversation as they get ready for their preseason opener tomorrow afternoon. We'll do that next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I mean, playing us into a Brown segment with loser by Beck is a clear choice by our board op Laura. A clear decision that there will be no quarter given today. We will open fire on everyone. Except, Ken Carman, who handles mornings at 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. I consider a good friend. And I would never imply that Ken is a loser, because he's not. He's a champion of the people. And we're going to get him hooked up here in just a second. And if anybody, though, has been around a team long enough to identify what he thinks may be loser behavior, Ken has been around the Browns long enough to identify that. So we're going to just dive right into it with him when we get him on the horn here in just a second. The quarterback battle, everything else that's going on with the roster that I think is otherwise, pretty talented. Like, that's the conundrum. That's the riddle wrapped in an enigma that is the Cleveland Browns. Everything else you look at and go, okay, maybe finally fix the receiver problem. We know we can run the ball. The defense, you got to feel pretty good about, especially on the second and third levels, linebackers, edge rushers, secondary. We're just waiting to figure out the most important question in football. And here we are getting ready for the Browns' preseason debut against the Bears tomorrow afternoon at Soldier Field in Chicago. Ken Carman, who handles mornings on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, joins us now. Good morning, Kenny. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. How is the conundrum wrapped in an enigma?
I'm late. I'm sorry. I'm late.
It's
dumb.
okay.
I'm an idiot. I was on the. No, we were out there because this is where we're at. Is that we want to make sure we have a fresh perspective. So we're already on to the joint practice against the Bills, and it's next Thursday. So we got to get somebody on from Buffalo. And I was talking over with my young producer, who's a fine young man named John, and all this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden I looked down at my phone and went, oh boy, and I had to run back down here. So I apologize to you and your lovely producer, Laura. I apologize to her as well. It was not her fault. That was my fault. So let's get going. I'm sorry, everybody.
I think I'd rather put the blame on John for getting in your way.
Well, you know how John is. I mean, he doesn't take anything seriously, and then, that's part of the problem with his generation, and that's part of the problem with how he was raised. But that's a different conversation.
That is a different conversation for a different day, Ken. Let's start with Deshaun Watson getting the start tomorrow in the preseason opener. Do we need to read anything into this? Is it Watson with pole position going into this quarterback battle?
I think you do. Todd Munkett will say no, and I respectfully, I really like Todd. I respectfully don't really believe that, but that joint practice is going to tell a lot coming up on Thursday. Like I said, that's why it's so important. But he's a 6-year-old first-time head coach, or at least first-time NFL head coach. He was the coach at Southern Miss and got them turned around before he went back to the NFL, which is not an easy thing to do. I think that it is. And the reason is because I think the thing that's important to them is you got two guys who have struggled with offense. One has struggled with offense for 10 years. I keep going back to Bill O'Brien, basically calling the plays right there and signaling to him like it was college, like he still didn't have that grasp at Houston. And that's been a well-documented story talking about Watson. And then, Shedeur, there's been a lot of, there was a lot of college, and you go to the NFL, and there's a lot of things that you have to do differently. And I think that the way they handled things last year set him even further behind, which is difficult because he has such a strong fan base. So I didn't like the way they handled it last year. I think they're handling it better this year. And the thing that's probably going to go into Deshaun's favor is just because he's so much older than Shedeur and has so much more experience is that he's probably better at getting him in and out of the huddle. relaying the information to his teammates in the huddle, getting them set up where they need to be. You got two rookies there. You know, if somebody needs to be in jet, somebody needs to be, if you need to can a call, like that's got to go differently. Like you got some pups there that you're working with, and Deshaun Watson's probably better at that. Now, that being said, there have been a lot of struggles with getting the football out after the play starts. There's been a lot of struggles with accuracy. There's been a lot of struggles, I think, with even arm strength there. I think there's been some struggles with confidence. I don't think Deshaun Watson's anywhere near the quarterback he was in 2020. And, I mean, that was 6 years ago. So you're kind of taking it as best you can, going, okay, then if it comes down to the bare bones, who can get him in and out of the huddle? Okay, if it's Deshaun, then they're going to pick Deshaun, and he'll probably start the first couple of games. We'll see where that goes. And then maybe by the time they get back to Cleveland in week 3, maybe it would be Shedeur Sanders. But I'm making a short story long. I do think that I'm reading into it, and I thought back in January from some of the texts that we got the day they hired Todd that we knew that he had seen something in Deshaun Watson he wanted to work with. And so I told everybody to brace themselves because there's not a lot of Deshaun Watson fans here in Cleveland. They're not really, they don't really like him that much. And I had to deliver the bad news to brace ourselves to get ready for this coming season. I'm not trying to have a confirmation bias here, but I think we really need to get ready for Deshaun Watson to start the year.
Do you think that Monken and the organization are going to use, you referenced, a lot of the pre-snap identification and everything that goes on there. Are they going to use that kind of stuff getting executed properly? I don't want to say as an excuse for making Watson the starter, or maybe it is really just evidence of the fact that Watson is more ready for this than Sanders. How big a part of the formula is that? Like the quarterback actually walking out there and not just being the guy who slings the rock, but the guy who commands the offense?
I think it's the biggest. You have 5 new offensive linemen there, too. And one of them's a rookie. And by the goodness gracious, Parker Brailsford had a pretty nice start to camp. Austin Barber's had a better start to camp than what people thought he would have. I mean, these are 2, day 2, day 3 picks to possibly be in your offensive line. But you got 5 new pieces, including your number 9 overall pick there. It matters. It is not an excuse. That, I think, is going to be the prevailing thought because you got to get everybody on the same page. Joel Bitonio isn't there anymore. He was your consummate professional veteran. They've moved on from a couple of the other veterans there who would kind of side-eye and kind of wouldn't, they would side-eye guys who came in because they knew the offense better than some of the other quarterbacks coming in. I think to some of them better than Deshaun and better than Shedeur. So anybody who has a chance to, now that was a different offense, that was Kevin Stefanski's offense, but I think that's going to matter the most. Who can relay the information, and then it's just what players can do what, who has the best talent to do those things. Shedeur can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't turn around and give it to everybody, that's gonna hamper you. Now, if he did have way more talent than Deshaun, I think they'd just figure out and work with it. But he struggled here and there in camp. So has Deshaun. And so I think it really does boil down to who can kind of get him going. And I mean, goodness gracious, you and I haven't talked about Dylan Gabriel. That's why he got some first-team snaps, because Dylan Gabriel knows offense. He's probably going to be a football coach someday. So if you know the information and you're smart enough, you're going to get a chance in this offense in 2026.
How well have they done, Ken? Ken Carman of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland with us here on Westwood One Sports. How well have they done at distributing the football? Because they brought in Denzel Boston, they brought in KC Concepcion, they've got these weapons at their disposal now. I think it's a really quick, really efficient job of making over the receiving core in one offseason, in one draft. How good do they feel about that?
They look light years ahead of anything they've had over the last couple of years. That includes Jerry Jeudy. They've both made Jerry Jeudy in so many ways almost a waste of money. He had a bad year last year. He had a good year the year before. Now, they only won 3 games the year before, so it's not like he's making that big of a difference in the win-loss column. He really struggled last year. Was pretty cantankerous last season. He's dropped some big balls in training camp so far this year. But when you have Denzel Boston and you have KC Concepcion, I mean, they've been fantastic. Now, my challenge is because we just have not had wide receivers over the last few years. Are they good as compared to like the NFL, or are they just good because I forgot what I was looking at in the years that we had before, when we had Amari Cooper, when we had Jarvis Landry, the 1,000-yard season we had with Odell Beckham Jr. Like, do they really look the part, or do they just look like the closest thing to the part since we've had over the last couple of years? But, man, Casey Concepcion came here, and there were questions about, catches and drops and things like that. He's been fantastic, just fantastic. And, I mean, Denzel Boston's been great. I mean, they are really wonderful. And they have stuck out so far, and it looks like they could certainly be a nice 1-2 punch for whoever gets that job, and then really the quarterback of the future, because you're hoping, and that's why you traded Myles Garrett, you're hoping that the quarterback you get in 2027 is going to make those two look even better in 2027 and beyond, including their tight end, Harold Fannin, who's been just a revelation in his rookie year and has been fantastic so far in camp.
So here's it's frustrating for me, and I'm not even a Browns fan, Ken, so I can imagine the frustration there.
Mm-hmm.
All of these weapons that are available, Fannin, you mentioned, the receivers looking light years ahead of anything you've seen in recent years. We could talk about the defense as well, but Jared Verse is no slouch. I know he's looked at as the other guy in the Myles Garrett deal. Carson Schweissinger, the secondary is still strong. How frustrating is it to go, man, we got everything in place, but we're probably going to have to wait another year before we finally get the final finishing piece of quarterback?
Well, it's a little bit, because I can go out and I can say, well, we got these nice pieces, and if we just get the quarterback, we're going to be good. Yeah, but I can walk outside and get hit by a bus today, and I'll never get to see it. So that's frustrating. But, hopefully it will make things better for whoever they get, because, I'm dealing in reality, and, Shador has a massive fan base, and they're very, very, very sensitive, very defensive of him. And that's, to me, I don't care. I've had some of my media brethren get a little upset about it. I'm going, guys, you're going to have to get used to it. Like, it's a different era. These guys have media teams, they have social media teams, and they have fans who love them. And you have people who don't even like football who love Shador Sanders. So you're just going to have to get used to it, because whether he's good or he's not, it ain't going to be the last guy who has a massive fan base who comes in here. So you're just going to have to deal with the slangs and arrows and the sensitivity that comes with it. But let's deal in reality. If they thought they could compete, they're not trading away Myles Garrett. The Rams didn't trade for Myles Garrett to just be mediocre, now did they? No. So Jared Verse is a fine player, and he's younger. He's never going to be probably never going to be Myles Garrett. You can never say never, but he's probably never going to be Myles Garrett, and that's okay. You can still be Jared Verse and be a multiple-time Pro Bowler and first and second team All-Pro and be a hell of a football player and a very good leader for this football team for the future, because they need that. They need guys to really set that culture, because this is why I thought it was a really good move here, is that you want these guys in place for that rookie to come in. Because, in 2018, when they went and they got Baker, it was Myles, and Myles is a great stat guy. Myles is a great player. Myles is not a vocal leader. Myles is not going to police that locker room. I think he's flirted with the idea in the past, but it never really took hold. I think about guys like, does Jalen Hurts have a chance in the NFL as a second-round pick? Now, he's a good leader in his own right, yes. But does he have a better chance in the NFL because he walked into a locker room that had Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, who weren't suffering fools? I think he did. And I think that that's what they're doing. Because remember, Andrew Berry's twin brother works for Philadelphia. He worked in Philadelphia, and he and Howie Roseman are very, very close. So I think he's starting to look at this in that way, going, all right, let's get to 2027. If Andrew Berry survived all this, I imagine he's going to be making that pick in 2027. So let's survive till 2027. We'll bring that quarterback in. There's the world of pressure on that QB, obviously, but we're going to make things easier. We're not going to make the same mistakes we did with Baker, where we gave him too much too soon, too much power too soon, and it ended up ruining things. We're not going to do that. So we're going to get a dude like Jared Verse back out of Myles Garrett, and we're going to get that first-round pick. And Jared Verse is going to be a sheriff in the locker room. Carson Schwessinger is going to be a sheriff in the locker room. Denzel Ward's always been a consummate pro and teammate and a wonderful man. He'll be in that locker room more than likely. We'll have him there, and we'll be able to take care of a young quarterback, but also give him the tools to start to assume leadership instead of forcing it upon him. And that is what I think is key. And obviously, these things are all theoretical. If you take the wrong quarterback, it doesn't matter. But you've got to lay the building blocks, because teams that win are teams that care about each other and care about a common goal. And for far too long, we've had guys who cared about stats and getting paid and those type of things, and letting chances to be really competitive here over the last decade slip through their fingers.
Ken Carman of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland with us here on Westwood One Sports. Is there a worry, Ken, from Browns fans that let's just paint this hypothetical picture? Let's say Deshaun loses the starting job to Shedeur after a few weeks, and Shedeur takes over and balls out. Shedeur Sanders looks great. Let's just say that happens because of the improvements in the receiving core and everything else. Is there a worry that this team would, I don't know, win 7 or 8 games and think that they are closer than they are with Sanders and not go find that quarterback next year? Or is that provide the perspective of, well, hey, maybe Shedeur can be that guy and we don't need to spend that pick next year on a quarterback, and we have done something right in the last few years?
There's always that, but there's always a fear a team can lie to itself. Teams lie to themselves all the time. That's why J.J. McCarthy's upset up there in Minnesota right now. There's always a fear they can lie to themselves. And I think, honestly, Chris, they can win 6 games because their schedule's not good. It's the NFL. Those are all good teams. It's not Ohio State and Prairie View or anything like that. But this is a schedule that is conducive to probably winning more games, and the over's 5.5. I think it's probably conducive to getting 6. That's not a number 1 overall pick, but that's why you got that extra first rounder, because you're hoping a team like the Raiders gets that first overall pick or something like that. And then maybe you can go up and make that move because you do have some building blocks there and you can give up some picks and move. But that's a hope. That's not necessarily a plan. If Shedeur takes off, he's got to really take off. He's got to really prove it, because this is, as of right now, this seems to be a treasure trove of quarterbacks for the future. But there's so many things that have to go his way. And right now through camp, it doesn't seem like it's going to go his way. So he might be a gamer. He might be a Brett Favre for all we know. And that'd be fantastic. But, that's why, again, they made that move in June. They're hedging their bets. And I think they're going to try to stick with the plan. So he's got to be undeniably good. They got to be a playoff team good, I think, for them to switch their plan and go with Shedeur or just not take a quarterback. I think they got to be a playoff team to get to that level. And I don't think they have what it takes just yet, especially at the quarterback position. I wish Shedeur well. I like Shedeur because of his dad. But so far, it's been a bit scattershot. So we'll see what he does in the preseason game tomorrow in the second half, and what happens next week. I'm rooting for him, but I don't know if it's going to go that way. I think they have their plan, and their plan certainly isn't to deviate from it.
Going to be a hell of an interesting year this season, Ken. I appreciate you taking the time this morning, man. Enjoy the first preseason game tomorrow. Hopefully you get to learn something from it, and we'll catch up again soon, bud.
I appreciate your guys' patience. You guys take care.
See ya. Ken Carman, mornings, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. You can listen to him every morning if you want some insight on the Browns and everything Cleveland inside your Odyssey app. Ken is just, I said it to start the segment when Laura tried playing him in with Loser by Beck. Laura, I can't believe you did that. Nobody knows more about what has led the Browns to where they are at this point than Ken. Like, the guy's been around the team for years, and I think not only understands, but does a great job of communicating just how existential isn't the word, but just how much the struggles of this franchise are just an inextricable thread of their DNA, and how difficult it's going to be to extract that sense of doom and dread from an organization that feels like I said earlier, everything else is in place for the most part. You just got to put on the finishing touch of actually finding a quarterback, which is the biggest question in this day and age. Coming up at the top of the hour, speaking of quarterbacks, one doesn't know how to act. He should just be letting all of this water roll right off his back and under the bridge, to mix metaphors and analogies, but he's not. And another quarterback coming up next who everybody is going to wildly overreact to after one preseason game. I'm going to tell you why maybe you should tap the brakes and look at it from more of a 50,000-foot view from one of the performances we got last night in the NFL preseason. That's next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports today. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Coming up in a little more than 30 minutes, Doug McCain of DMAC and Writer Afternoons on 97.1 The Fan in L.A. We've got Lakers questions. The owner's a Clippers fan. We've got Dodgers questions. Blew a lead in the ninth to the Brewers last night. Could Ohtani ever actually consider exercising this key man clause in his contract? And, of course, Rams questions, because we're still playing the will he or won't he game with a possible Aaron Donald return. That's coming up around 11:20 Eastern, 8:20 Pacific. Jaden Daniels, DJ Pickett, and the battle for number 5. What are we doing? Coming up at the top of the hour. But I mentioned, we had NFL preseason overreactions earlier. And some of these, it's fun to think about, okay, if what we saw in glimpses last night with 6 NFL preseason games being played, if what we saw is enough to draw conclusions from, or whether we need to tap the brakes. Okay. And I think in one instance in particular, we need to tap the brakes just a little bit. I'm not asking for you to pull over to the side of the road and completely stop, but at the very least, tap the brakes as you're flying downhill at 100 miles an hour on this one. Because I think the immediate overreaction I saw on social media last night, and not just from fans of this team or fans of this player and the college team he played for, or even the bots and trolls online. That wild overreaction doesn't necessarily shock me or surprise me. What surprised me was the immediate overreaction from folks at a national level. Last night, Drew Aller made his NFL preseason debut for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They took him in the 3rd round this year, even though they took Will Howard in the 6th round the year before that, even though they had Aaron Rodgers coming back. Even though they've also got Mason Rudolph on the roster as a capable backup veteran. They took Drew Aller with their 3rd round pick. And to give a little background to those of you who aren't familiar with the particular neuroses of Steelers fans, especially in the Pittsburgh area, a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans are also Pitt Panthers fans. At least in the Pittsburgh area. The Steelers have a far-flung national and international fan base, but a lot of people in Pittsburgh who are Steelers fans also consider Pickett was drafted by the Steelers in the 1st round, way overdrafted by the Steelers in the 1st round several years ago. They immediately got excited. And then Kenny Pickett had an incredible preseason, and everybody went nuts. Pickett to Pickens is the new Montana to Rice. I mean, people were being ridiculous. And then Kenny Pickett ended up looking like, well, you would expect Kenny Pickett would. Little baby hands and such. A lot of us weren't shocked by that. But Pitt Panther fans also hate Penn State. So the Steelers taking another roll of the dice with a quarterback from a college in the area. Penn State is about 2.5, 3 hours up the road from Pittsburgh. It rubs some Steeler fans the wrong way. And then you have Penn State fans even who look at Aller and go, I don't know if I'm completely sold on this guy after the way things went against Notre Dame a couple years ago. So people were coming in tentative and afraid of what Drew Aller may or may not be to begin with. But he lit it up last night. 10 of 13, 153 yards, 2 touchdown passes, a rushing TD as well. And immediately I see people posting, when's he going to take Rodgers' job? He's not. He's not even going to be the number 2 this year, I wouldn't think. It's great that Drew Aller had a wonderful first game in the preseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's great. I'm happy for the kid. I'm personally a Steelers fan myself, I hope he does end up being that dude. Does end up being the next guy. I'd love to see that. But can we pump the brakes on when are the Steelers going to have to put Aller in? Well, it's one preseason game. And I think the bigger takeaway is that Aller wasn't the only quarterback that looked good for the Steelers last night. All three of their backup quarterbacks looked good. Aaron Rodgers didn't play at all. Mason Rudolph went 10 of 11 for 93 yards. Led a long drive that failed on 4th and goal from inside the 5. Will Howard went 7 of 9 for 86 yards. In totality, Steelers quarterbacks threw for 313 yards on 27 of 33 last night. That is probably the best passing performance by a Steelers team in the last 6 years. No, seriously. They've thrown for that many yards in a regular season game just once since 2020 have they thrown for that many yards in a regular season game. And I think that's the bigger takeaway. They looked like they had a functioning offense under Mike McCarthy. A lot of people look at Mike McCarthy and think, oh, look at that big lug. He's a football guy. No, Mike McCarthy is a great offensive mind, believe it or not. And at the very least, he's been able to develop quarterbacks. So maybe we're seeing the first baby steps of that with Will Howard and especially Drew Aller after last night. But maybe we're also seeing Mike McCarthy give the Pittsburgh Steelers an offensive identity that they failed to have for the last half decade towards the end of the Mike Tomlin era. That's the 50,000-foot view. That's the big zoom-out takeaway. The Steelers may actually have a real functioning offense this year. Coming up, speaking of identity, somebody's self-awareness either never existed or they just way overshot how important they are. And they're paying the price for it. I'll tell you who next here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And we have arrived. The final hour of the show, the Power Hour, on a fabulous Football Friday. Yes, I said Football Friday. 6 preseason games last night, 3 more tonight, a whole bunch tomorrow, too. Full slate of preseason action that we can overanalyze and overreact to. Here on Westwood One Sports, Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Not just football questions in LA, baseball questions, a blown lead to the Brewers in the 9th last night. Basketball questions, definitely. The new owner is a Clippers fan? What? A lot to talk about with D-Mac, Doug McCain of D-Mac and Writer Afternoons on 97.1 The Fan in LA. He's coming up in about 20 minutes. Before we wrap up, our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day. Plus, I got, if you really want to go full D-Gen with me, I got a preseason football bet for you. Oh, hell yeah, I do. Because that's how we do it on You Better You Bet, live inside the Westwood One Sports app, inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, live across North America on Sirius XM, channel 375, on YouTube, where you can jump into the chat as well, youtube.com/@thekostos, TheKostos. You're always welcome on the phones, too, at 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. As someone who has family way deep down in the bayous of Louisiana, I know exactly how they're reacting to this whole mess. The number 5 mess with DJ Pickett and Jaden Daniels. And oh, by the way, let's drag Joe Burrow into it too. Let's get a comment from Lane Kiffin because he's the coach now. Let's talk about the former coach, Brian Kelly, being a giant dope and promising a kid a number that he probably shouldn't have promised him. It's been an absolute, utter disaster. And somehow, some way, Jaden Daniels has managed to come out of this as the one looking the absolute worst. I want to let you hear what Joe Burrow said about this whole thing in just a second. But I want to start with, we played this for you earlier, and I think it most succinctly gets at the crux of the matter and why LSU fans are, if they haven't already, ready to excommunicate Jaden Daniels from the Bayou family, despite winning a Heisman there several years ago. This is Josh Pate on ESPN yesterday talking about the whole Jaden Daniels, DJ Pickett number 5 saga.
But my problem was when Joe Burrow's name got brought up, because both are Heisman winners. And at that point, I'm just going to tell you what LSU fans would tell you. Respect Jaden Daniels. Love what he did for us. You're not Joe Burrow. Your impact on this university was not Joe Burrow. And if that guy is being treated differently than you, it's because he has a different shelf on the legacy of LSU, maybe than you, or, hey, for that matter, anyone else does.
Anyone.
And that's the most important point here, at least in my opinion. Joe Burrow and the 2019 LSU Tigers he is the player on the team. Right up there, as Pate put it there, on the shelf with a handful of the greatest college football teams of all time. And Burrow's performance was singular for that team. Jaden Daniels won a Heisman, yeah, on a 3-loss team that went to the ReliaQuest Bowl. So there is a marked difference between Daniels and Burrow and what they each did at LSU. That's not to say that what Daniels did was unimpressive or not great and shouldn't also be remembered in the annals of LSU football. He won a Heisman there. But now there's reports that he's asking for the Heisman back from LSU, the replica one that they have on display in the trophy case of their facility. He's suing LSU to no longer use his name, image, and likeness because he's mad that some recruit, granted a 5-star recruit who could have played anywhere in the country most likely, that some recruit is getting to wear his number. Jaden Daniels is mad because his number hasn't been stored away for posterity the way Joe Burrow's number has been stored away, the way LSU told Joe Burrow they were going to handle his jersey number from Joe Burrow's mouth himself.
Yeah, they told me that they wouldn't use it again, but you never know. You never know what happens.
And that's the proper reaction. The reaction that Joe Burrow just had was, you never know. You never know what happens. It strikes me, and maybe it's easy for Joe Burrow to have this reaction because it's not his number being handed to someone else, but it strikes me that Joe Burrow, if his number 9 got handed to someone else, would go, oh, okay. Like, that would be the extent of his reaction. Meanwhile, we have Jaden Daniels acting like somebody has stripped the very essence of his being away and handed it to someone else. What are we doing, Jaden? Are you really that soft that you can't handle some kid being given the number 5? Is that really what's sending you into this spiral? And for that matter, if we're going to criticize Jaden Daniels, and he deserves a ton of criticism in this instance for he and his representatives dragging Joe Burrow into this argument as a comparison to his career, you're going to lose that comparison, Jaden. If we're going to criticize Jaden Daniels, we should also criticize the other people involved in this. Let's start with DJ Pickett. Oh, you've been wearing the number 5 since you were a little kid playing Pee-wee mite football. That's wonderful. Oh, you had to wear number 3 last year? I'm sorry, did that hurt your psyche? Go out and play football. I have no time, I have no sympathy, I have no empathy for a grown man, and let's be honest, DJ Pickett is at this point, he's a grown-ass man going to LSU to play football. I have no sympathy, empathy, time for your, but I've worn this number since I was a little kid. I don't care. Go out and play football. They promised me I could wear number 5. I don't care. Brian Kelly's I was going to say something I can't say on the air. Brian Kelly's a big dummy. I'm sorry he promised you number 5. But if it really matters that much to you, go. Go play somewhere else. That would have been my reaction. Now, Lane Kiffin, surprise, surprise, chose to handle things differently. And Lane Kiffin is now saying, he's passing the buck, essentially saying, well, DJ was promised number 5, and we've got to stand by what we promise our recruits. I mean, put it to the test, Lane. Tell the kid he can't wear 5. Tell him he can wear 15. Tell him he can wear 55 for all I care. Tell him he can wear 555. I don't care. Just tell him he can't wear number 5 if it's that important. And I would have no problem with LSU telling players, yeah, you know what? 5's still on the shelf for the time being. The same way they've done with Burrow. I would have no problem with them doing that for Daniels if they wanted to. Clearly, they don't want to. And they've decided to let this recruit walk in and push this entire thing into absolute orbit, into absolute stupidity. I'm sorry. If you are as good as DJ Pickett is supposed to be, 5-star recruit, you're at LSU, it should not matter whether you're wearing a number, a Roman numeral, an Egyptian hieroglyphic. It doesn't matter what you're wearing on the back of your jersey. Go out and show how good you are. Make a name for yourself instead of just being the number 5 guy. Forever, from here on out, the number 5 guy. Congratulations. The people that don't even know your name, DJ Pickett, you're just number 5 guy. Go out and make a name for yourself in number 3 or number 7 or number whatever. Whatever they hand you. I can't imagine, even if I had been good at sports as a kid and in high school, which I was not, by the way. Part of the reason I sit here and talk about it. Even if I had been good, I could not have imagined making my college decision or an important pillar in my college decision based on what number they're going to let me wear. I mean, maybe I'm a boomer, a Gen X or whatever, but is that a serious part of the consideration here? So while Jaden Daniels walks away from this probably with the most mud on his face, we can't ignore the fact that this all started with DJ Pickett making a stink about a jersey number. And again, Daniels reacting the way he has is why he walks away from this looking the worst out of everybody involved. Because if you choose to put it to the side, you let DJ Pickett play out his college career at LSU if you're Jaden Daniels. And if he happens to have a great career in your number 5, like you own it, like here we have another grown-ass man acting like he owns the rights to a number, then so what? He goes off and has a great career. Short of winning a Heisman, he's not going to match what you did. So why are you getting all caught up in this? Is it because your feelings are hurt that Joe Burrow's number is still on the shelf and yours no longer is? I mean, the amount of adolescent, even prepubescent emotions that are getting the better of people here is absolutely ridiculous. And I can't imagine we've reached this point where guys are going to live and die based on what jersey number they get to wear. It's just, again, maybe I'm getting old. But how much does it really matter? Again, short of your grandparents' dying words being, make sure you get number 5. It shouldn't matter that much to you. It really shouldn't. It's a damn jersey number. Everybody needs to get over themselves. Pickett, Daniels, all of them. Because you got a bunch of grown men acting like children. And how'd you like to be a Commanders fan right now? Who you're hoping Jaden Daniels and the Commanders bounce back from last year. And you're hoping he can stay healthy. And you're hoping that he's focused coming into this season. And look, I'm not saying people can't pay attention to more than one thing at a time. Multitasking exists. But for this to even hit Jaden Daniels' radar during training camp in the preseason is another fault. You should be so locked in on football right now that you don't care one bit what's going on in Baton Rouge. and who gets what number. And somebody got my number 5? I thought they loved me more. Stay healthy and win some football games. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos this morning here on Westwood One Sports. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. There's a lot going on. Wild times in LA right now. Shohei Ohtani's got some weird clause in his contract that may or may not be a bit of a break glass in case of emergency. You got the Lakers' new co-owner saying he's a Clippers fan. And, oh, yeah, we're still on Aaron Donald watch, too. We're going to try to get to the bottom of all of this with D-Mac. Doug McCain of 97.1 The Fan in L.A. joins us next right here on Westwood One Sports.
Trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess who? I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Guess who? Aaron Donald. Man, what a massive comeback it would be. Aaron Donald sacking Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl several years ago. We're calling him Defensive Player of the Week because the decision is supposed to come at some point this week about a possible comeback or not for Aaron Donald. Defensive Player of the Week, sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed services, veterans, and their families. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Try to catch up with Doug McCain of D-Mac and Writer Afternoons at 97.1 The Fan in LA in just a second. And I want to talk to him about not just the Aaron Donald story, but also this weird Shohei Ohtani contract clause that we found out more about over the last couple of days, as well as, the immediate impact of the Dodgers losing a game last night, because it doesn't sound like the Ohtani thing has many legs right now. And, of course, the fact that the Lakers were just sold. And their new co-owner, Bob Iger, is an admitted Clippers fan. What? What? How is that even allowed to be a thing? I mean, I get it. He had the money, so yeah, I get it. But come on. The Lakers are owned by a Clippers fan? That feels like it should be creating some sort of existential dread for Lakers fans. Like, is this an inside job? I don't think. I think it's just Bob Iger is a very rich man who wants to make more money. And investing by buying the Lakers is probably a very good way to make more money. But that just seems, like a hard pill to swallow. I know it was something he said like 5 years ago, but it still feels like a really hard pill to swallow. Anyway, there's a lot going on in Southern California, and we're going to talk to D-Mac about all of it in just a couple of minutes here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. It is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. With you inside the Westwood One Sports app, as well as the Odyssey app, AUD, ACY, and live across North America on Sirius XM channel 375. Before we wrap up, I'm a total D-gen, so I've got a preseason football bet for you, and we'll also get you our 3 stars of the day, our 3 favorite moments of the show. But let's talk about some of the existential dread that may exist for Lakers fans now. Because a year after the team was bought, the team has been sold again. And we'll talk about everything going on in LA with our good friend Doug McCain. D-Mac and Writer, afternoons on 97.1 The Fan in LA. Morning, Doug. Thanks for making the time. We appreciate it, brother. Let's start with the Lakers. We've been joking about Bob Iger making the admission on JJ Redick's podcast a few years back that he's a Clippers fan. But bigger than just that, and that little anecdote, is just the idea that the Lakers, long owned by the Buss family, and I know Jeannie Buss is still on the board of governors, has that seat on the board of governors, but it kind of feels like the Lakers are being just passed around at this point. How are fans reacting to all of this?
Yeah, fans really were in shock. Fans were really in a position where it almost felt like, hey, we thought that this was supposed to be Mark Walter, a guy from the Dodgers that was going to turn the Lakers into the Dodgers and not turn the Lakers into $2.5 billion in profit. And that he was supposed to be a steward for the franchise and not a profiteer. And it was about, okay, we are going to have the best analytics department with the best scouting department. We're going to put a championship team around Luka Doncic. And all of a sudden, he's gone. And all of a sudden, it's a new ownership group, and fans are really stunned about this. Fans are not happy about this just because you don't have that stability. You don't have that continuity. And as you point out, the Lakers are an institution, right? They're not a asset. They're not supposed to be thrown around like that. And I think last couple of days we've been talking about the whole Bob Iger thing, and I got a text saying, okay, like, Bob Iger, he ruined Star Wars and Marvel. Now he's going to ruin the Lakers, right? So some fans are thinking to themselves, like, is this a good thing long term? And then really what it comes down to after just kind of a couple of days sitting on this thing and just kind of learning about some of the allegations about Mark Walter's holding company, TWG Global, where they're being investigated by the DOJ, and there's reports that he could owe anywhere from $16 to $21 billion. I think really for me, it's turned into, did he want to sell the Lakers or did he have to sell the Lakers? And I think that's kind of where it's going to with just this whole approach.
Yeah, and there's this weird tie-in, obviously, with him being involved with the Dodgers as well. And Stan Kasten, I know, was trying to downplay this. This is a Lakers story. It's not a Dodgers story. But there's also this odd opt-out clause in Shohei Ohtani's deal that I don't think, look, we are probably add 2 and 2 and get 5 when we talk about the Lakers sale maybe triggering a clause in Shohei Ohtani's contract. But I do think it's interesting that that clause exists in the first place, Doug, and just the uneasiness around Dodgers ownership now as well, with Walter getting out of the Lakers business but still being involved in the Dodgers business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what keeps Dodgers fans up at night. When Dodgers fans wake up at 3:30 in the morning in a cold sweat and they're staring at the fan, they're thinking of the doomsday scenario that Shohei Ohtani could opt out in all this with this key man clause. And also it includes Andrew Friedman, their president of baseball operations too. But for this as a whole, I mean, that's terrifying. Right? Let's be honest. Like, I mean, you won your 2 World Series with Shohei already, but it's not just the fact that he's one of not the greatest players in baseball that's led to 2 World Series. It's just the fact that he makes so much money in revenue for the franchise, too. I mean, last year, the Dodgers, they became the first MLB team to make over $1 billion in revenue. So if that's gone, what does that mean for Mark Walter and the franchise? And for myself, just kind of talking to sources in and around the Dodgers, what I was able to gather in the last 24 hours was just the fact that, hey, Mark Walter saw this deal that was too good to pass up, and that I heard that maybe he wasn't a basketball guy. Now, how much do you want to buy that and believe that and think that's the big reason why? I personally, myself, I'm always going to be naturally skeptical, and I refuse to believe that he just wanted to sell the Lakers for $2.5 billion in profit. But maybe you look at the Lakers and you look at the Dodgers and you say, wow, in Major League Baseball, you can cover all your assets with depth. If Kyle Tucker doesn't work out, if Edwin Diaz doesn't work out, right, you still have the depth, right? Because you can basically sign anyone you want as long as you're able to pay the luxury tax. Basketball is very different. With the aprons, you got to pick right, you got to draft right. The margin for error is very different. So maybe there was a world where they just looked at this, and after a lot of the Dodgers execs and people got involved over there and said, hey, this might take longer than we expected to take, and maybe they got a taste of it and thought, hey, this is not going to be as easy to build a winner in the NBA as is in Major League Baseball. I don't know. That's just kind of what I am speculating as a possibility as well. But yeah, I mean, Shohei Ohtani said yesterday, and there was a report from Sam Blum of The Athletic, very respected reporter out here, that Shohei would not activate his key man clause if the Dodgers were sold. So that's definitely something that we wanted to hear. But hey, we've heard stuff like this a long time ago with Frank McCourt too, right? When they said he wasn't going to sell, ultimately he did. So I think we need to let some weeks and months go by and let the dust settle here to really feel good and secure about the future of the organization.
Doug McCain, check out DMAC and Writer afternoons 2 to 6 Pacific every weekday on 97.1 The Fan in LA with us here on Westwood One Sports. As for the team field, Edwin Diaz, who you mentioned a moment ago, blows another save last night. A come from behind win by the Brewers in the 9th inning. And the Dodgers, look, the wheels haven't fallen off. I'm not going to go that far, but it almost feels like since they've added Tarek Skubal, there's been sort of this, I don't know if it's the team trying to find its new equilibrium or what it is, Doug, but it just feels out of sorts for the Dodgers as they're trying to cement their place in one of the top 2 spots in the NL going into October.
Yeah, it's been a rocky ride for the last couple of weeks since the All-Star break. This team hasn't played great baseball. As you mentioned, you add Tarek Skubal, and that was the big win. You got the big fish at the deadline, and the hope there was that it was going to spark this team, a team that's played a ton of baseball, a team that played 17 postseason games last year and had a grueling Game 7 on the road. Before that, 16 postseason games, and that kind of starts to add up. And the hope was, okay, you add Tarek Skubal, a guy that's hungry and fresh, and it's going to help lead this team to a World Series. But this team just has not gotten back on track. They did just sweep the Royals at home, which is a last place team. And to me, I don't think you can make too much about that. It's like bowling at 300, but you have the bumpers on, right? The score looks good, but it really doesn't hit the same. Last night, that Brewers team didn't have an extra base hit. That Brewers team had 10 singles, and Edwin Diaz has looked bad. It's been a disaster. Every time he's been on the mound, essentially, you already have the blown saves piling up. He has 3 blown saves in over the last week since he's returned. He has made just 5 appearances, so there is some time to get it right. But Dave Roberts was feisty yesterday. Dave Roberts was asked about the closer situation, and he essentially said, I need another option. So last year, Tanner Scott was the big offseason acquisition for the bullpen, and he was essentially a bust. He led the league in 10 blown saves. This year, you have Edwin Diaz, $69 million, hasn't gotten the job done. So they're going to have to look at their options or hope that he rounds into form. But this Dodgers team has not played really good baseball. They have the oldest position player group in the sport, and they just need to find that juice. And last night, they should have won that game. Edwin Diaz blew it badly. I think fans out here, too, they're starting to wonder, okay, like, do we really want to see you running out with the narco, with the Timmy Trumpet, and all that hyped up entrance and blow it, right? So there's just kind of this weird thing like, hey, what is wrong with Edwin Diaz? What's wrong with the Dodgers? Hopefully they can turn things around and get back in the win column tonight, though.
Doug McCain with us from 97.1 The Fan in LA, talking everything Los Angeles sports. Check out D-Mac and Ryder afternoons on The Fan in LA. So we're getting down to the wire here, at least it sounds like, according to reports, D-Mac, about Aaron Donald making a decision about his return to the Rams. He had the, quote, tryout earlier in the week, right? They had to call it a tryout as he got some reps in front of everybody. And it sounds like everybody was impressed. Just if this does end up happening, how do you foresee Donald getting folded back into the mix, and just how much of an impact can he have after a few years away?
Yeah, just kind of talking to some of his former teammates, they're feeling like he would not come back if he didn't feel like he could be close to the Aaron Donald that we saw when he retired, where it wasn't the peak 2018, 20.5 sack Aaron Donald, but someone that could still be in the conversation to being one of the best interior linemen in the sport. So his friends, his former teammates, they feel like he could still be elite. Aaron Donald, if you've seen any of these videos and some of these speed drills, the guy looks like he still has it. And as far as him coming back, it feels inevitable. I think it's something that is only a matter of time that we're going to get that breaking news, and everyone's going to lose their minds, because not only do the Rams add the best defensive player in the league currently in Myles Garrett, but then you add Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald, after 2 years off, which a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm worried because of the 2 years off, and that's a lot of time to miss to play such a physical position, I look at that as an advantage, because last time we saw him, he was getting doubled and tripled, sometimes quad teamed, and now he's fresh. Now he's got 2 years where he doesn't have those bumps and bruises. He's healing from that. And then when he comes back with Myles Garrett on the line, this is going to be an absolute nightmare for offensive coordinators, because who do you double? Who do you triple? So Aaron Donald getting single attention. I mean, when have we ever seen that? So either he's going to eat, either Myles Garrett's going to eat, either Braden Fizz, Kobe Turner, Byron Young are going to eat. But this has the potential to be one of the most ferocious defensive lines in the history of the sport. And as good as Myles Garrett is, I still contend that if Aaron Donald comes back and looks like he did before, that Myles Garrett, as the reigning defensive player of the year, will actually be the second best defensive player on his own team. And Aaron Donald, I think, is going to come back with a vengeance and a chance to add to that legacy, add another Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, and prove that he's one of the best defensive players ever.
Before I let you run, D-Mac, I got to ask. The Rams obviously don't have a lot of high-profile position battles going on as they go into tomorrow's preseason opener in Kansas City against the Chiefs. But they do have the backup quarterbacks, and we know how some people felt about the drafting of Ty Simpson as early as they did take him. But you've got an established backup who's been in the system for a couple of years already in Stetson Bennett. What's it going to look like as far as how the snaps are parceled out tomorrow afternoon in KC? And just what are people hoping to see from Ty Simpson in his first preseason game?
I think for Ty Simpson, you just want to see him go out there and look competent. And look, Sean McVay's offense, after the installs, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's going to take a couple years for him to master that to some degree. But what we saw from Stetson Bennett a couple years ago, and even last year's, the interceptions, the turnovers, and he just did not look like someone that projects as an NFL starting quarterback. Can Ty Simpson give that impression tonight? I mean, this weekend. Can Ty Simpson go out there, make the easy throws, avoid turnovers, avoid some of that happy feet that we've seen from him in some of the training camp sessions, and go through his progressions? I think Ty Simpson, what his calling card is, what he was known to be, was someone that can process very well and go to his third or fourth option. I want to see if that's the case in an NFL game against NFL players. I mean, we saw Fernando Mendoza yesterday. He looked the part. He was making great dime throws over the middle in between the numbers. And I think that's what we want to see from Ty Simpson, just making those throws from inside the numbers. And I'll be honest with you, as great as this Rams team is on paper, they are a super team. This roster has more stars than Hollywood Boulevard. But the backup quarterback option does give me a little anxiety, just because you've had Jimmy Garoppolo, who was a steady force, who was someone that was so respected in that building. And Matthew Stafford, 38, he gets banged up, and you're a Rams team that is all in, Super Bowl or bust, and you have to give the reins to a Stetson Bennett or a Ty Simpson versus having Jimmy Garoppolo, a true veteran backup quarterback that we've seen the last couple of years. That definitely is something that keeps me up at night for sure, because Stetson Bennett, the fact that he's not playing, that tells you that Sean McVay feels like he would be the backup quarterback right now because of how Sean McVay handles his preseason. So in the back of my mind, I wonder if they're still thinking about the possibility of bringing in a Jimmy Garoppolo at some point just because of what's at stake this season. And that's something that I would consider if I was the Rams. I would say, hey, Jimmy G, are you sure you're retired? Are you sure you don't want to play? Because I don't know if you want to give this to either a first-time starter or a rookie in the event that Matthew Stafford has to miss any time.
Doug, great stuff, man. We appreciate you dancing all over the LA sports landscape with us for the last couple minutes. Thanks for getting up early with us. We'll check you out this afternoon. D-Mac and Ryder afternoons on 97.1 The Fan in LA. Appreciate it again, man.
My man, Chris Mack. Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. D-Mac, Doug McCain of D-Mac and Ryder every afternoon on The Fan in LA. You can check it out inside your Odyssey app. And, of course, if you're in Southern California, 97.1, that's where you get them. The Aaron Donald thing, look, I will own it. When the first rumors came out a few months ago about a possible Aaron Donald comeback, I poo-pooed it. I went, yeah, okay. Oh, Aaron Donald's working out? Yeah, Aaron Donald's been working out since he was 12 years old. The man's always in shape. But it feels like we're quickly accelerating towards this being a reality. And that is just, even if you only get him for 30 snaps a game, if he's anything close to what he was before he walked away, it's not fair. With that Rams defense that they've already built, it's simply not fair. True degens like myself will bet on preseason NFL football. I got a bet for you if you want to go down that Players of the day before we wrap up here. Next, it's You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
You want to make me happy on a Friday? Just give me a little mid to late 90s grunge adjacency. That's what I'd call Stone Temple Pilots. Not full-on grunge. Grunge adjacent. It is Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Give you our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day in just a moment. Plus, I've got a bet for you before we wrap up as well. Yeah, I'm betting on preseason football. Go ahead, look down your nose at me. Judge me, please. Because this one's going to win, and then you're going to wish you'd bet on preseason football too. But I did want to address one thing. It came out as a story last night while some of us were watching preseason football. The Seahawks are reportedly signing Terrion Arnold, who you may remember is facing 8 felony counts, I believe, from an incident earlier this year in Florida. Kidnapping and robbery amongst them. Look, I get that it's a low risk. I think it's a $1 million deal, and he'll probably be on the restricted list anyway. If he gets suspended, they can get out of the deal easily, Seattle. And I get the fact that they've got issues with depth at corner. But is this really the path you want to go down? And I don't just mean bringing Terrion Arnold in while this case is still up in the air. I mean, it goes one of 2 ways. Arnold is eventually cleared to play. And yeah, the high or the low risk, high reward maneuver pays off because you've got somebody you can play along your other 2 starting corners. And he would, I think, instantly step in as the second best corner on your roster, behind only Devin Witherspoon. But the other side of this is he goes on the restricted list. Things don't go well for him, and he never plays football again, and you're looked at as the team that tried to take one last swing on a guy who ends up being a felon. Again, those are the charges. Those are the allegations. Maybe that's not how it all works out. I just look at Seattle's secondary and I say, I understand low risk, high reward maneuvers, but this isn't one that I would have gotten down with. We'll see how it works out. Like I said, maybe in a few months, this is all cleared up and Terrion Arnold is a Seattle Seahawk and actually out on the field playing. And I look like a big dummy for questioning it right now. Under 35.5. That's what I'm going with tonight in a preseason football game. Buccaneers and Jets are meeting tonight. All 6 games last night, went under the total. Yes, 35.5 is a very small number, but the Bucs are going to be back up heavy on offense. And the Jets are only going to play their starters a few series, if that, and Geno Smith is still their starting quarterback. So, I don't think we're going to light the night up with points tonight between the Bucs and the Jets. I'll go under the 35.5. All of that said, if you're going to get in on that, do it inside your BetMGM app, where if you're betting baseball today or at any point really this weekend, you can get one of those home run props, and it's no sweat with the MLB no sweat home run token. You don't have to worry if that bet doesn't clear the fences. Activate your token when you bet on any player to hit a home run, and if that player fails to go yard, you'll get your stake back in bonus bets. Download the BetMGM app today, and please gamble responsibly. Let's get to our 3 favorite moments of the show, our 3 stars of the day. Let's go.
3.
Well, this Dodgers team has not played really good baseball. They have the oldest position player group in the sport, and they just need to find that juice. And last night, they should have won that game. Edwin Diaz blew it badly. I think fans out here, too, they're starting to wonder, okay, like, do we really want to see you running out with the Timmy trumpet and all that hyped-up entrance and blow it?
Doug McCain of 97.1 The Fan in L.A. talking about the Dodgers and Edwin Diaz blowing another lead. He's blown 3 of his last 4 save opportunities last night in a big one against the Brewers at Chavez Ravine. as they continue to battle with Milwaukee and Atlanta for positioning and hopefully a bye into the divisional round series in the National League. Our number 2 star?
2.
And you know how fans are. They're going to look at what Drew Aller did last night for your Steelers, and people are going to overreact to it. I'm going to hold off on that, but and see how the rest of the preseason and training camp develops. But by and large, that was not exactly an inspiring, stellar performance by Cam Ward last night.
John Burton of News Channel 5 and WNSR Sports Radio in Nashville. Cam Ward just 5 of 12 last night. Yeah, they had a touchdown on the opening drive, went 95 yards, but looking back on it, not the prettiest overall performance. I'm not going to overreact either, like JB, to either the bad in Ward's case or the very good in Aller's case. Our number 1 star of the day?
1.
I told everybody to brace themselves because there's not a lot of Deshaun Watson fans here in Cleveland. They're not really. They don't really like him that much, and I had to deliver the bad news to brace ourselves to get ready for this coming season. I'm not trying to have a confirmation bias here, but I think we really need to get ready for Deshaun Watson to start the year.
Ken Carman of 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland talking about Deshaun Watson not just starting tomorrow afternoon in Chicago in the Browns preseason opener, but being the starting quarterback going into week 1 in Jacksonville. I really do think there's a serious question to be asked. It's why I asked Ken about it a little bit later in that conversation. If you missed anything, by the way, just search You Better You Bet wherever you get your podcast. You can listen back to all these conversations. I did ask Ken, for a team that's thinking, okay, we got to get the first overall pick or a top 3, top 4 pick next year so we can get our quarterback of the future finally, what happens if Shedeur Sanders ends up playing this year and plays very well? I'm not expecting it to happen, but if it does happen, would it surprise us at all if the Browns' plans went completely sideways and they thought Shedeur was the guy instead of going and finding their guy next year? Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for making it work. Dan, Mike, Kenny, Tyler, Laura. I'm Chris Mack. Bleck and Abdallah up next. Keep it here on Westwood One Sports.